All right, so I'm turning the recording back on. So we're back into session 5. We just finished talking to Vince Sura, and I'm going to go back to share screen. And let's see, so where am I at here? I want to find my PowerPoint. There we go. Back and share that from current slide. Okay, so we missed that as there. We did our celebrity interview. So I want to talk a little bit about, touch base with you guys on our lean movie. So last week you had to finish your quiz on the TPS history video. A little, I think it's sort of interesting, relatively short video, 15 minutes, but I think as a person who's studying lean and Six Sigma, you need a little bit of history of how some of this stuff started, and so I think it's important that you know something about the Toyota production system history. So I'm gonna take a hand on this one, and Michael, you're gonna have to lower your hand in order to participate in this. But so the question is, if lean didn't start in the car industry, what industry did it start in? So I want to see some hands raised on that. Okay, let's see. I want to see how many hands we have raised so I can then sort of randomly pick from there. All right, looks like Judy, I'm going to have to go to you. Tell me, so where did this lean stuff start? What
in
kind
the
of
weaving industry?
Was that?
In the weaving industry.
Yeah, it was weaving. So it was all about looms in the beginning, which is something that I think it's good sort of cocktail party fodder if you're you know, being asked to talk about lean and somebody finds out that you've got your sort of green belt. Are there any questions or anybody have any comments they want to make about the movie, the Toyota production history? It's pretty straightforward stuff, I think. This week, I'm asking you to take a look at some Gimba Academy videos. You actually have to go in and use a special link and a login to see those Gimba Academy videos. I'm asking you to watch the 5S videos because 5S tends to be a real good entry-level tool or thought process to use in working with companies. I think a lot of you will really sort of appreciate that. What I've done in the past, this is actually is an improvement. I used to have people watch this 5S video when MoreSteam teaches it, which is actually in the control phase. I think it's a little bit better to see this sort of early on as you guys are going to start working on your projects and working with companies. So I look forward to hearing what you guys think about 5S when you talk about that next Wednesday. Any questions about movies? What's going on with movies? So we're going to do the Gimba Academy 5S videos this week, and then next week's going to be stockless production, some Hewlett-Packard videos. Okay.
So Eric, this is Cassie. So
Hey,
the login that you said on PolyLearn, I don't know how to log into that or the access.
Yes. So Laura, maybe you could sort of help me. So I think on our new, it ought to have just transferred over to the to our new Moodle, right?
Yeah. Hi, Cassie. I saw your email. I was actually a little bit confused. Yeah, because I just uploaded the same link onto our the Fullerton site. And so you shouldn't have to access PolyLearn at all. I think I just clicked on the link to test the movie. Was it the quiz or the link that you had an issue with?
So it was like you had a PDF or something that said like the Gamba video with all the other movie links, and the other movie links work, but when you click on it, it's like, okay, I didn't see a link because it just looked like it was a PDF.
Yeah. So Laura, let me take this a little bit. So the PDF, if I remember correctly, I think it was some screenshots of what you would find once you use the link and the password to get on the Gimba Academy website. So you have to sort of go back up. I think there's a thing that says Gimba Academy or Access Gimba Academy. Go to that, read the instructions for how to use the link to get in there. Once you get in there, the PDF will make some sense. Does that?
Sure, no, I'll try.
Yeah, give that a try, and if that doesn't work for you, come back to us and we'll help you get to where you need to be. All right?
Sure.
Okay, Cassie, thanks. Any other questions about movies? All right. So one of the things is, as we sort of came into this, working with my lean team and my student assistants, we said we want to have some good way to measure and track the lecture quizzes and the movie quizzes. And Laura and I, last week, we worked on coming up with some rubrics, and we thought, well, there's two important pieces, whether the comments you guys are writing are on topic, right? So does it match what the guest speaker was talking about? And then, how deeply did you think or relate to that information, right? Are sort of the two things. And the same thing applied to the movies. So we're looking at that. But what I realized as we were getting into this, it sort of, to me, and Laura, I don't know how you sort of think about this, but it's come to me, it's sort of like a little greenbelt problem or project as we looked at this, because Laura and I were both looking and reading your student information, and we said, well, who's the person that knows best, how to rate or evaluate these things? And this comes up in work all the time. So if we had, say, in a service situation, you had two supervisors or evaluating employee performance, you can compare those two supervisors, how they're evaluating that performance. They might come up with different answers. And that's actually the situation that Laura and I came into. So we pulled a sample of 5 different responses to the lecture quizzes and the movie quizzes, and she and I each evaluated against these rubrics. And I'm going to share with you what the data looks like. So this is what the data looks like. So for each one of these things, for the topic and the thought, you can get anywhere from 0 to 1 point, right? And so you can see, for example, so on observation 1A, so we had student A was looking at answering that first question. Laura scored that person a 1 on topic. I scored him a 1 on topic. And then on thought, Laura scored him a 1 and I scored him a 0.33, right? So there's definitely a difference. So if you sort of look down those columns, I got the award for being a little bit of a harder grader than Laura on evaluating these things. So I'm looking at this data and trying to keep up my values of being honest and responsible in how I grade and evaluate students. I said, we're not ready for prime time. We can't really roll this out and evaluate students. So this is where we're currently at, Laura and I, as far as looking at this data. Laura and I also, we talked and traded some emails because I was in a Kaizen event all day. I didn't have time to sort of kind of close the loop with her on these things. But we're talking about maybe doing we definitely got some differences here in how Laura and I are scoring, but I'm not sure if those differences are significant. We could do a paired t-test of Laura's ratings, versus my ratings, and try to see if there is some sort of statistical difference, and we can go ahead and do that additional analysis. So now that we have the measure, we can go into an analysis phase and try to see if we can identify where the issue is and what the problem is. Laura, do you have any other comments about this?
No, not really. Yeah, just that clearly there's a lot of room for interpretation, I guess, when we're reading through the different responses. So yeah, you kind of covered it all.
Right. So we need to figure out a way to sync up on this and do a better operationalization of our measurement system here. So we're going to be working on it. Here's the data from the movie. I'm going to go ahead and post this online. If anybody wants to take a look at it, they're welcome to. but we're still sort of working the problem, and it might not be until next quarter when we actually get a good measurement system for the quizzes and stuff up and running. All right. So here's another thing, back to our tips and tricks. Want to know that whenever you're on a page in MoreSteam, you can go over to that left-hand panel and click on that little notes word there on the left, and that'll pull up a page, and you'll have a note that's actually tagged to that page in MoreSteam. So if you're reading on something and say, well, this is really interesting, I want to be able to come back to it, you write yourself a little note on there, and then when you come back to that page in this future, this little note word on the side will actually have an asterisk by it. So every page that you write a note will have an asterisk. So if you're studying and you find, oh, this is a real good summary of this topic, or this is something I really want to be able to apply well in my mini project, you want to be able to find it fast, you can actually flag it by hitting that note button on the side, okay? I just happen to think that this information on characteristics of effective leadership was something I wanted to capture and sort of paste on the note, so I didn't have to click through links to find this information. All right. Any comments or questions about that? Other things that people have found by clicking around, or any tips or tricks anybody wants to share? Okay, so I got 2 raised hands. Let me go ahead and go over here. Whoop. Okay, so Judy, you want to go first?
Sure. I actually have 2 questions. They're not so much tips and tricks as, well, they will be tips once I have the answers, I suppose.
Okay, good.
One of them is that I'm trying to firm up my schedule for when things are due and when I need to get things done. And some of the assignments that are going to be coming due have May dates on them as the due dates.
Okay.
And that's in the Fullerton site.
Right, okay.
And so I was just wondering about that. And then the other thing is kind of the difference between the black belt requirement and the green belt requirement. The black belt requirement, there are 2 different dates, both of which say finalize mini project. And I'm wondering, are there 2 black belt mini projects? My impression was that there was a mini project and a, I don't know, maxi project. But then I realized, I guess I really don't know what is going to be required for that.
Okay, so Laura and I are still in the process of, I guess, date cleanup. There's a lot of different sort of dates that get embedded in that Fullerton Moodle, and we'll go ahead and fix those. The thing to go back is if you go to your syllabus or to this sheet in one of the handouts and look at these dates on here. So when it says tool plan assignment, it's due 7/24 is when we're targeting to complete that. That's the date you need to hit, okay?
Okay, on the black belt though, there are 2 dates, one in December, I think, and one in July, one in August, when it says that mini projects due for black belt.
Yeah, so for the black belts, yeah, I should change that. So your mini project for black belts is not due until December. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So yeah, that's the straightforward answer to that question. All right. Cassie, do you have a question? So Cassie, you're on mute if you can unmute.
Sorry, I need to put my hand down.
Oh, okay. That's good. Anybody else have any questions around the tips and tricks? I'm going to go ahead and get back there. Okay, so that was tips and tricks. Okay, highlight reel. So we're in the.
I'm sorry, it looked like Dr. Olson, Malia had a question. I wasn't sure if that was on accident or not.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Malia. Do you have a question?
Maybe not.
Okay. So highlight reel. So for session 5, measurement 1. So one of the things when we talk about this whole thing of Six Sigma and statistics, one way to think about it is through that little up diagram on the upper left here, is where you're looking at, going from the practical arena to the statistical arena and then back again. And, if you're a manager like Vince, talking about that, the employees are surfacing these sort of practical problems, and you need to maybe, get some data, you need to do some additional analysis. So you're going from that practical world into a statistical problem, statistical solution, and eventually you got to come back. So when we're looking at basic statistics and you're getting into hypothesis testing and paired t-testing, that's in the statistical arena. But at the end of the day, we're about trying to get practical solutions and things that are going to, improve our business processes. So you always got to get back into that practical world. So it's one way to think about things. I think I also in Lean, and Vince mentioned this, we put a big emphasis on sort of the principle, just a general principle of visual management and visualizing the data. Real important. So whenever you're working with data, always try to figure out how you can plot it first. Different sort of levels of, data information, going from continuous information, continuous data, all the way down to sort of nominal or categorical type data. And there's a trade-off between the information you get and how much it's going to cost to go ahead and get that. And those are some things you want to consider when you're in the measurement phase. There might be some great data to get or great measurement to have, but it's going to be, if it's going to be prohibitively expensive, take the approach that maybe just getting a little bit of reliable data. I forget what Vince's exact words, for it, but get some data that's sort of consistent versus, totally statistically correct, maybe is better for making the kind of decisions that you want to make. Two big parts. When you're looking at data, think of, okay, I've got data for the location of the center of the process, so how centered is the process, and I got data that tells me what the variation in the process is. And so you get those two pieces as we talk about data. And then if you look in that lower right-hand corner, when you guys come out of this class, you're learning a lot of different tools, a lot of different concepts. There are certain things, though, that I think is just sort of basic walking around data for somebody who's studied Lean, Six Sigma, as a green belt or a black belt. You ought to know something about a normal distribution curve. And, walking around data for me is somebody says, well, how much data is between plus or minus 3 standard deviations? Well, it's 99.7% of the data is between those 2 points. And that equates, from a problem basis, there's, 3 parts out of 1,000 are sort of outside that distribution, right? So this is just good sort of, having a feel for what a normal distribution curve looks like. So those were the highlights for session 5. I'm going to see if I can turn to something else here. So one of the things for working problems in this area, we're going to use an example called Saint Sigma. And it's actually, you're seeing a lot of medical people involved in the healthcare industry, getting into Lean Six Sigma. So MoreSteam jumped on the bandwagon and created a little simulation they called Saint Sigma. And I'm going to see if I can share that with you now. So let me stop sharing here and then go to my screen share. And I want to go to, nope, that's the PowerPoint slideshow. Here we go. Share this screen with you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a little bit of this. Let me do a maximize the screen. And I'm not, I got a size problem, it looks like. Well, let me see. One second, go ahead and move this. So I'm going to go ahead and launch the simulation here. And so so everybody's seeing, like, at this point, so Michael, you got your sort of hand raised. I'm thinking that a lot of this stuff is being cut off on the screen. Is that the case?
Could be, yeah. I had a quick question about data.
Okay, go ahead and ask the question while I'm trying to figure this out.
Yeah, we kind of talk about data sort of ambiguously. I'm looking for more of like a actual example of how you're actually collecting data. So like if you're in a manufacturing environment, what kind of physical steps are you going to do to gather data?
Yeah, well, that's interesting. Maybe it sounds ambiguous because I guess as a lean guy, I guess I sort of see everything as data, right?
Right.
So if I'm making observations on something, and I'm just seeing how a person is, moving a tool and how often they're moving a tool, that's data. And if I'm, actually, maybe, measuring, I've got 20 parts and I've got to measure the diameter on all those parts, and that's data. So I want to, be a little bit flippant and say maybe it's ambiguous because it is kind of thing, or it's ubiquitous, and we talk about it in all different ways. So ask me the question again in a little different way to understand what it is you're.
Okay, so like in my situation, I'm planning on looking at how to reduce downtime. So I guess, do you look at the process as a whole, like, okay, we went this many hours overtime, or I'm more looking at how can we reduce downtime? So maybe, if equipment's breaking down, maybe we can, I guess I'm kind of having trouble gathering the data for something like that, to something we can actually look at and process.
Right. So I guess, from a downtime, standpoint, I'd say, okay, the best thing I would want to maybe look at is for the total amount of time that the machine is supposed to be running, right? So maybe it needs to be running during an 8-hour shift. I would want to know, well, how many minutes or, what percentage of that total 8-hour shift is the machine being down, right? So
that's perfect. So I guess would you physically stand there and kind of count every time the machine stops, or would you have somebody kind of say, okay, I need you to, to be here and tell me, and click a stopwatch or something like that, or?
Yeah. So this is sort of where you get into that trade-off between cost and accuracy. So what I just described to you would be, boy, it'd be great to have that kind of detail of information, right? So I know exact amount of time in an 8-hour shift when that machine was down. But I could also say, I could go up to the machinist and say, hey, how many times did that machine go down this week? And he would say, well, it went down, 3 times. So now I've got some, more sort of, nominal data or ordinal data about how many times, this thing went down. And that would be, sort of good data. So, and maybe that's sort of enough. So does that give you some ideas as to what the different data would be? And I guess, and sort of another thing would be like on a sampling basis, right? So if you said, every time I go out on the shop floor, and I go out on the shop floor, once every hour, or I go out, randomly 3 or 4 times a day. And when I go out there, is the machine up or down? So that's a categorical thing. It's like a yes, no. And I'm going to sort of note that information. And I'm going to use that information as to measure or operationalize, how I measure downtime.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I guess you could also apply that to employee performance, like a sampling situation.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Right, yeah. So,
Yeah, that's
we really have all the data we want or the information. I think, from a lean perspective, what I'd like to do is I'd like to have some fairly easy measures that sort of catch a lot of the problem or the issue. And then if I really sort of nailed, identify a problem, maybe just sort of drill down, right? And say, now I've really got a problem. I got to invest the time. I got to sit here for all 8 hours, or I've got to, pay my machinist, additional, or have them as an extra part of their job. They got to create a specific downtime log because we got to solve this problem. We got to know exactly how big it is, right? But I wouldn't necessarily make that as the first step.
Okay.
Right.
And then I suppose you could also incorporate technology into it, so you have some kind of computer tracking when the machine goes down, right?
Yeah. But like I said, I don't know as I would pay that money up front if it isn't easy or readily available.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. So first, you want to look at the more obvious problems.
Yeah. Or is it really an issue? And if it's an issue that I need to spend money to actually sort of track and fix. And I guess from a lean perspective, I would rather pay money to fix the root cause of the problem. So if I know that it's going down, I would say, what's the root cause of why it's going down, as opposed to invest money in tracking how often it's going down.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. That ties into what I'm kind of getting at. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Perfect. Thank you. Sure.
Well, I'll tell you, we're gonna visit Lean Saint Sigma, in the future a little bit more. I've done like 8 hours of a Kaizen event. Now I'm in my bonus time of 2 hours of talking to you online. I don't know if I got any more problem solving in me, at this point in time. So I'm gonna pass on Saint Sigma for today. But it's something that we're going to look at, and I'll share with you when I'm on my own computer and I know how to run it a little bit more effectively. I should have spent more time testing it out on this computer before I started this. So with that, I am going to go back and stop my screen share, go back to my regular slides. So let me, let's see, let me close this part here. And I want to do a share screen. Go back to my PowerPoint. And current slide. So Saint Sigma. So really just want to wrap up here at this point. So hidden gems. This was actually one of the things I was talking to with Vince. So he had his problem countermeasure board, which I think is an excellent tool. And by the way, you guys, in doing your tools for your mini project, you're not restricted to just the tools that you learn about in MoreSteam, But if we have people from our guest speakers who talk about a certain tool, or you find a lean tool that's on the internet that you want to use or you think would be particularly applicable to your situation, I say go for it. Okay, there's a lot of lean tools out there, and there's more than this just taught in this course. So one of my favorite go-to tools is this check sheet. And I've got an example of what that looks like there. So I use this a lot at Hewlett-Packard, just like Vince was talking about, using his problem countermeasure board in his experience. But I put up essentially a white sheet of flip chart paper on the wall, and I put down some typical problems that we have noted. So these might be historical problems that either come and go or periodically we know existed in the process. And I would have the employees, as they noted those problems, they'd put a little tick mark up. So this would be the occurrence, right? And I might have a line on this, Michael, that said machine went down was one of the problems. And I'm asking employees to say, every time the machine goes down, just put up a tick mark. And that becomes some data that I sort of collect on problems. But looking at this, one of the nice things, if this is on a flip chart and it's visual up there, you get the people noting the problem. You also get people that are walking by and seeing, oh, what's this? Oh, I noticed that, this certain problem category is really high. I've seen that problem before. Here's what we did the last time that happened, or here's some solutions I know. So engineers walking by this would see this, or managers walking by, and everybody would have a sense of what the issues or the problems are that people are dealing with in the production areas or in the service areas of their business. The other nice thing about this is we'd have the regular problems that people saw on a regular basis, and those would be like pre-populated on here. But I also wouldn't be afraid to say, hey, kind of like Vince is saying, anytime you see a problem or issue occur, that would sort of go up, and let's start tracking it. So let's add additional lines on this chart, and we can go ahead and start tracking those things. So if an employee said, hey, I can't find copier paper, write it down as a problem. Let's start tracking. How often does this problem actually happen? And if it rises to something that comes at a certain level of frequency or occurrence that we need to fix it, we can go ahead and do that. So check sheet, one of my hidden gem and one of my favorites. Also, there's the Pareto chart. This check sheet data, when we're counting this, one of the things you might want to go and use in your measure phase is you might use a Pareto chart. So once we know the frequency on these problems, we can go ahead, and a Pareto chart is just a simple lining up of the frequency from the most frequent to the least frequent event, right? And so this is one way, if you don't have the data to do a Pareto chart, this is an easy way to build that data. Put this check sheet up in your operations area or whatever, or the place that you're sort of looking at, and have the associates start to collect that data for you. Okay, so that is it for today. That's all I've got. I'm kind of worn out now. I gotta get some rest. We're 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. We're back in the Kaizen event. We're going through until Friday at noon. So we've got our work cut out for us. But it's fun. We've got 20 people that are now involved in this, and from not only Sonoma State, but also we got some people came up from San Diego State and from Chico State to help us work on this. But any questions on what we've covered, what we haven't covered, what you guys got to do? What questions do you have for me? Go ahead and raise your hands. And it looks like we have no hand raising. Is that even possible? I guess I talked to you guys too much today. All right, I am going to say that's it for tonight. You guys have a good week, have a good evening, enjoy your weekend, and I will talk to you next week. Feel free to keep on shooting those emails either Laura's way or my way. All right. Everybody take care.
Thanks, Eric.
All right. Night.